Okay, remember how I said I had a bucket of eggs? It wasn't of egg whites. I wasn't kidding. So I'm about to separate, but I also recognize that might be kind of challenging. I'm afraid of making a giant mess. But what the heck? What are giant messes for but for fun? Actually, it is not applesauce. It is sugar and butter, but the butter is melted. It does look a lot like applesauce, probably just a little bit more delicious. Okay, so I'm separating eggs, maybe, theoretically. To put in the not applesauce. And I'm putting them in my giant bucket of egg whites. Well, just 2 of them, because the recipe calls for 4 eggs and 2 egg yolks. Although it might have just called for like 5 eggs if I hadn't doubled it. Okay. I grab the not applesauce and start dumping egg yolks into it. I know that's not as interesting when you can't see it, but I'll have to figure out. I may get like a camera mount over here so you can watch stuff. Okay. I'm only planning on playing or streaming until Words comes on it. Wait, is Words on today? It's not, is it? I forgot about that. They're just messing with us. Because, yeah, it's Friday, and they don't do it right now on Fridays. Okay, well, I'm glad I started streaming again because it would have been silly to wait for something that's not happening. Okay, we're going to call that good enough. Okay, my bucket of egg whites is going back into the fridge. And I'll put this over here to wash. Okay. I'll put this back over here. I have grabbed a random bowl from the dirty dishes to throw my eggshells into. Okay. I think you missed the part where I said I was going to stop saying okay all the time. But I obviously have not stopped saying okay all the time. Oh, look at me getting shells into things. Now I know there's supposed to be like a thing where it's easier to pick it out with a shell, but I don't know. I think it's easier just to pick it out. You know, I should probably actually watch what this looks like because my camera might be too close and it might be terrible. Or I might just be putting my hands in the way of everything. Let's see. Oh, behold, my hand's giant. Seriously? Okay, maybe I should try the getting it out with an eggshell trick. I'm not convinced that's easier, but we do that. Behold, eggshell. I think that, okay, there we go. Somewhere. But honestly, it's kind of hard to tell what's just shiny. And what was the actual eggshell. Okay, I'm going to wash off my hands. Okay, see, what next? According to the recipe, let's see, eggs, put them in there. Oh, I'm supposed to have been preheating the oven. It says to preheat it to 325, but it's also, I think, assuming that you're using a dark colored pan because most 8x8 pans are dark colored. So I'm going to 350 because I'm using a light colored pan. Well, a clear pan. Pan, not pan. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Something, something. Butter melted, whisk in. Eggs, egg yolk, vanilla. Stir in oil and cocoa powder. So people who do like recipe people always tell you to like get all your stuff out in advance, and that is a good idea because it saves you following that advice most of the time. Okay, let's see here. Hopefully you're not seeing my butt, but I bet you are. Okay. Let's see. Cocoa powder, vegetable oil. One of our viewers had a question a while ago about whether vegetable oil and canola oil can be used interchangeably, and they can. So I happen I happen to have canola oil at the moment. Okay, I suppose I could get a few more things out while we're here. Flour, which I have. No, wait, that's not flour, that's sugar. Flour. Baking soda, cornstarch, salt. And chocolate chips. Very important. So this brownie recipe uses two kinds of chocolate for reasons that probably include something to do with having different notes come through or taking advantage of the different physics or something like that. I don't really know why, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Okay, give me a whisk. Oh, we have our first troll, Leanna. You probably can't see them because they're on Twitch. I've just banned them. That didn't take very long at all. Okay. Vanilla extract. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So a sensible or careful person would measure this. 2 teaspoons. I mean, I suppose I could measure it. 2 teaspoons of most liquids is roughly, so a teaspoon is usually like 5 grams of most things. It's super rough, but frankly, so is my measuring. So. Okay, so I just did 11 grams. Like I say, it's intentionally not that precise. It's vanilla. The alcohol cooks out and you're left with some flavor. Okay, so we're whisking those things. That feels really very solid at the bottom. I think the sugar is like got somewhat saturated, but not all the way. It's very funny texture right now. Okay, starting to break up a little. Okay, so my goal here is to have the eggs not chill the butter so much that it turns into a butterberg. I tend to get this wrong on a regular basis. So I purposely, the recipe says to heat the butter for like a minute to melt it. I went for 2 minutes, but I did cover it because I also tend to have issues with things exploding in the microwave when it's butter. So there were no explosions, and it does seem to be warm enough to offset the coldness of the butter, of the eggs. Okay, fantastic. Stir in the oil and cocoa powder. So we're supposed to put in 2/3 cup of vegetable oil. This means I'm going to have to talk to my Google Assistant. Okay, let's see. Let me think of what I want to do. So basically, most oils seem to weigh about 13.5 grams per tablespoon, so I need to know. Okay, hey Google, what's 13.5 times 16 divided by, oh shoot, not divided. Okay, never mind. Okay, hey Google, what's 13.5 times 16 times 0.66666? I'm going to have to do it in 2 steps. Or I could just use a calculator. That'd probably be more sensible. Okay, hey Google, what's 13.5 times 16? Okay, hey Google, what's 216 times 0.666? That is not the answer. Hey Google, this is going to be like an example of why you shouldn't bother with these stupid assistants. Okay. No. Hey Google, what? I forgot the first number. I'm doing a calculator. Hey Google, stop please. Okay, let's try this just using a calculator. 13.5 times 16. The reason I'm doing 16 is because there's 16 tablespoons in a cup times 0.6666-ish to get the number of grams. Okay, so it's 144 basically. Okay, 144. It's like a remnant or something. And you start to see why these brownies are so delicious when you consider that there's also 10 tablespoons of butter in here. So it's pretty much butter, sugar, eggs, vanilla, oil. Okay. And 150 grams of cocoa powder. I'm going to sanity check that. Let's see. Like 2. I'm not sure. Is that really right? You know what? I'm going to... Oh, because it's a cup and a half. Never mind. Okay. This recipe, I've doubled it, but I haven't necessarily kept track of the grams are doubled, but the volume measurements are not, because of the way this app works. And so I was thinking, wow, 150 grams seems like a lot for a 3/4 cup, but for a cup and a half, it's probably pretty reasonable. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to put that out of the way for right now. Double check that we're still streaming. Behold, there's cocoa powder. Okay. Okay. I have a thing where I almost, partially it's because I'm bad at estimating, and partially it's because my bowls are nested in the cabinet, and so the ones that are, oh look, you can't see my head. Maybe I should move the phone. The ones that are bigger are down further in the stack, and it's kind of a pain to get them out. So we can stir this pretty much to our heart's content because the flour isn't in here yet. Once we add the flour, we want not so fantastic if you're making something that you don't want to be chewy. Well, I don't know. These are called chewy brownies, but I don't think it's the same. Generally, the adjective people use when they describe things where the gluten's been overdeveloped when it shouldn't be is they say it's tough. Okay. Let's see if I can point that up a little bit more so you can see my head when I'm over there, for whatever that's worth. Okay, let's see. Then we're supposed to add, let's see, with a rubber spatula, stir in the flour, baking soda, cornstarch, and salt until combined. So that means goodbye whisk. Oh, you know what? If I spray this, I can set it in here. Okay. All-purpose flour. So I need my measuring spoons. Oh, where are all my measuring spoons? There's a few in the dishwasher, but where are the rest of them? Okay. 126 grams of flour. So most flours weigh between 120 and 130 grams per cup. So this 126 is basically a cup. And I don't know. This particular flour is just like cheap store brand flour. So I don't know that I don't even know if I could find out how much it weighs per cup, but generally speaking, they recommend weighing flour rather than scooping it because you get much more consistent volume. Quarter teaspoon. Seriously, where are my quarter teaspoons? Oh, they weren't really missing. They were just not stacked. Baking soda. So a lot of recipes call for you to mix all the dry ingredients together first. I mean, it seems like probably a good idea, but I made this recipe once before, and it seemed like it worked okay without. It saved a bowl. Okay, baking soda done. Cornstarch. 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. I don't actually think I've come across cornstarch in a brownie recipe before, so I'm curious what that does. I mean, cornstarch in general tends to absorb moisture, but and like give things more of a, it kind of acts like gelatin where it makes things kind of gummy. I guess maybe that's a good thing in brownies. I don't know. Okay. And the salt. And then it calls for mixing this before putting in the chocolate chips. I don't want to do too much mixing because, again, I don't want to be over mixing the batter. So I'm going to put the chocolate chips in at this point. Okay, 256 grams of chocolate chips. That's like a cup and a half. That if you're buying your chocolate chips in like normal grocery store bags, that would probably be almost a whole bag, I think. 256. Okay, I'm going to snack on a couple because seriously, they're chocolate chips. So I'm folding this in fairly gingerly, partly because that does inhibit the gluten development somewhat, I think, and also because my bowl is not too small, but it's definitely not too big either. I'm trying very hard to keep the flour in the bowl. But this consistency looks pretty good for brownies. So it does not give any guidance on how many strokes or whatever, because some like box brownies sometimes tell you to use a spoon and 50 strokes or something. But I'm basically shooting for no big pockets of flour and not a whole lot further. Because we didn't mix in our baking soda and stuff separate to the flour mixture, I do want to make sure that it's reasonably well distributed. Mostly because, I mean, there's not that much baking soda in there. There's only a 1/4 teaspoon, so it's really the barest amount of rising power. But if you got that all in one bite, it would taste pretty nasty. Okay. I'm going to look at the bottom and see if there's still a few pockets of flour. Sometimes it gets, kind of stuck to the bottom, and you kind of have to flip it up a little bit like that. Okay, I think that's probably pretty good. I'll move this somewhere else to get washed. I think I hear my husband's truck. I do hear my husband's truck because now I hear our garage. So I will have a husband coming in a moment. Who may or may not want to be on camera as he's making his dinner. So I might stop streaming very soon. Well, not very soon. It'll take him a minute to get parked and get upstairs. My goal, in case you're wondering, is to do this at a predictable time between 4:30 and 5:30 my time, which is Pacific time. And that would be outside of dinner making time, which would probably be a good thing. I kind of wonder if a little bit of sea salt on top of this might be nice. Because I've made this brownie once before, and it's pretty dark. And I think dark chocolate and sea salt is just a nice combination. What I'm wondering is, if I sprinkle some on, will I actually be able to see it by the time it's done cooking? This is me on my cooking show, Daniel. Okay, isn't that what I just said? It is what I just said. So I will stop it when you come down and ready to cook dinner. Okay. Oh yeah, salt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle some of it with salt. How many kinds of salt should I use? I have this Malden sea salt, which is like a nice big flake. So I think that would be my best choice. Because what I want to see really is is it still visible, or do I need to sprinkle it on right after it is done cooking? So maybe I'll do it in like thirds. I think that's going to absorb right in. I need to make sure I keep track of which third I'm doing, cause otherwise it might be like the saltiest brownie anybody ever had. Okay, well, we'll see. Okay, and then it's ready to go in the oven. And the thing I like about these brownies is that it really, even at my snail's pace, doesn't take that long to put them together. Okay, 30 minutes. You know what? I'll do it on the Google so that he can use the microwave timer. Hey Google, set a timer for 30 minutes, please. Okay. So, I'm about to turn off this broadcast because my husband doesn't want to be on the broadcast while he's making spaghetti, which I suppose is fair. And then I will continue working on my cream horn goodness. While not dumping flour all over the floor. It's a noble goal. Okay, so actually this puff pastry is seeming like it's great to work with right now. So I'm gonna roll it out some. Okay. Yeah, that seems good. Okay, so what did it say? Let me switch back to that other recipe. And this one's gonna cook at 400 degrees. Let's see. Cut the dough into 3/4 inch wide strips. So if I'm making 18 of them, and they're 0.75 inches. Hey Google, what's 18 times 0.75? So I ought to be able to get 13 and a half. No, wait. I need 13 and a half inches. So that seems like, what am I missing here? Because that seems kind of like it's going to make a lot more than 18 of them. Because without rolling it out, it's like 9 inches already, which means I've got 18 inches. Which means they could be an inch wide. Or maybe, I don't know. You know what? I'm just gonna, you know what? I think I'm not gonna roll it out. That's what I'm gonna do. It's not really necessary. And then I'll use a pizza wheel to cut them out, I think. 0.75 inch wide. That's really not very wide though. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna do one and then see how it looks. Okay. Oh, that's it doesn't really say whether you're supposed to spray this with nonstick spray or anything. So I'm going to do one with and one without. Well, this should be pretty They're pretty heavy on the puff pastry has a lot of butter in it, or fat, not necessarily butter. Okay, but I'm going to sign off so my husband can make dinner. Toodaloo.